everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we are tackling a concept that can really change how you approach, well, just about anything.
Really can.
Yeah, and it's this idea called the compound effect.
Okay.
We've got some excerpts from a book, and it's all about how the small, everyday choices that you make can build up over time
Right.
to some pretty impressive results. It's like a snowball effect, but for your goals.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it? We often get caught up looking for these big actions that we need to take, but really the magic is in the consistency.
Right.
Doing the small steps repeatedly over time, you can create this momentum.
Yeah, it's like, that saying, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
But instead of bricks, we're talking about habits and decisions, even your mindset.
Right.
And that's where this compound effect comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not about these sudden bursts of energy or changing everything overnight. It's about harnessing this power of consistent, incremental progress.
Okay, so to really kind of grasp this, let's look at an example from the book that, like the penny analogy. So imagine a penny,
Okay.
and it doubles in value every day for a month.
Okay.
Sounds pretty insignificant at first.
Yeah. For a while, it might not feel like much is happening, but you have to stick with it because that's where the magic of compounding really kicks in.
Right.
So by day 20, that penny would be worth over $5,000.
Oh, wow.
Not bad for a month's worth of work. But here's where it gets really mind-blowing.
Okay, lay it on me. What happens on day 31?
Day 31, that penny has transformed into, wait for it, over $10 million.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's a powerful illustration of even small, seemingly insignificant gains can lead to exponential growth when they are compounded over time.
That's insane.
It is. It's not about the size of the action. It's about the consistency.
Mm.
And doing it over and over again really challenges that instant gratification mindset that we see so much of today.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of challenging mindsets, the book tells a really interesting story about three friends to drive this point home.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And it shows how seemingly insignificant daily choices can make a world of difference in the long run. Essentially, these three friends, they start out very similar, but their daily habits send them down very different paths.
Yeah, and it all boils down to awareness. So often we just kind of go through life on autopilot, making choices and not even realizing what the long-term consequences might be. So the first step is simply being aware. Start paying attention to your actions. Be more aware of these little decisions you're making every single day.
So we've got friend A. Friend A is just kind of cruising, not making any changes. And then there's friend C. Friend C is picking up some not so great habits, like maybe indulging in too much junk food.
Right.
Or not prioritizing exercise.
Yeah.
And then we've got friend B, the compound effect champion.
Friend B, yeah, he is the one who understands that these small changes made consistently can have a huge impact. So he starts incorporating just a few positive habits into his daily routine. Maybe he starts reading for 15 minutes each day or cuts back on sugary drinks or takes the stairs instead of the elevator.
And you know what? Over time, these seemingly small adjustments lead to some pretty remarkable results. Like friend B ends up healthier, more knowledgeable, and successful.
Yeah.
Simply because he embraced this power of consistent action.
Yeah. It's powerful. It reminds us we don't need to make these crazy changes to see improvement. Just a few small tweaks in our routines can have this ripple effect and can really transform our lives over time.
Now, this whole idea of building positive habits is key here, right?
Yeah.
And the book uses a great analogy about this. It talks about a tiny tree sapling
Oh, yeah.
growing into this mighty oak tree. And just like a tree needs, time and nourishment to grow strong, so do our habits.
And there's actually a scientific reason why habits are so powerful. Our brains are wired to conserve energy. So the more we repeat an action, the less effort it requires. So eventually, these repeated actions become automatic.
Oh, okay.
It's almost like a subconscious program running in the background.
So you're saying if we're not intentional about these habits that we are forming, we could end up on autopilot and be heading in a direction that we don't even want to go.
Exactly. And that can be a little scary because, our habits are the building blocks of our lives.
Right.
They really shape our character, our relationships, our health, our finances,
Right.
pretty much everything.
Okay, so that brings us to another important element, which is motivation. The book talks about this, and I have to say, the analogy they use is so powerful. It's the plank walk analogy.
Oh, yeah, I love this one.
So imagine walking across a plank of wood.
Okay.
No big deal, right? But now imagine that same plank suspended between two skyscrapers.
Yeah, the stakes are a lot higher.
A lot higher.
Right.
So the action is the same. You're still just walking across this plank.
You're just walking across a plank, yep.
But the context, the why behind it, makes all the difference. So if your motivation is strong enough, you can overcome these, like, seemingly impossible challenges.
And that's the difference. Your why has to be so strong. It can't just be some fleeting thing or a surface-level desire. It has to be really deep-rooted, like rooted in your core values.
Yeah.
The guiding principles that shape who you are at your core.
So it's not just about wanting to achieve something. It's about aligning your goals with what truly matters to you.
Exactly.
Like, I love that the book provides some really thought-provoking questions to help us kind of get clear on those core values.
It does. They ask you to ask yourself, what do I stand for?
Right.
Or what legacy do I want to leave behind? Or even what brings me joy and fulfillment? And when you start to answer those questions, you start to uncover your core values.
Right, yeah. And when our goals are connected to our values, we tapped into this almost inexhaustible well of motivation that can help us, push through the challenges and setbacks.
Absolutely. It's almost like that passion just becomes contagious. When you're truly inspired by what you're doing, it shows up in every aspect of your life, your work, your relationships, your overall well-being. It's amazing.
Okay, so we've got our values, our motivations fired up. We're ready to set some clear, specific goals. But it's not just about wishful thinking, right? Like, how do we set goals that we'll actually stick to and achieve?
Well, we talked earlier about the law of attraction. So by clearly defining what you want, you're priming your mind to recognize opportunities that maybe you would have missed otherwise.
Okay, so it's like we are programming our internal GPS system to, like, be aware.
Exactly, yeah. And the book emphasizes that before you even get caught up in the how-to of achieving the goal, you need to ask yourself a question. And that question is, who do I need to become to achieve this goal?
Okay, so I remember this from earlier. It's about identifying the qualities and skills and habits.
Right, the things that are going to support you on your journey.
Yeah.
For example, if you want to write a book, you might need to become more disciplined, more organized. You might need to be resilient and able to handle rejections and setbacks that might come along the way.
So it's not just about taking external actions, it's about cultivating these internal qualities.
Yes, exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And remember, the compound effect works both ways. So just as these positive habits and choices lead to incredible growth, negative patterns can also compound over time and create a downward spiral.
Oh, okay. So that's where that awareness piece comes in again.
Yes.
Like, we need to pay attention to the choices that we're making every day, make sure they're moving us in the direction we want to go.
Got it.
Yeah, I think this idea of, like, slow and steady progress, it really resonates with me more than these, like, quick fixes that are out there. It's like we're trying to move away from this microwave mentality,
Yeah.
Like, we expect everything to happen just, like, instantly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that quick fix mentality is everywhere these days. Like, we want fast food, we want quick results, we want overnight success. But the thing is, real change takes time. It takes effort, and it takes consistency.
Yeah, it's like planting a seed. You wouldn't expect a giant oak tree to sprout overnight.
Exactly.
It needs time, it needs nourishment, it needs that consistent care to really reach its full potential.
That's such a great analogy. And just like that oak tree, the habits and the choices we make each day, those are the seeds we are planting in the garden of our lives. What we cultivate today is going to determine the harvest we are going to reap in the future.
That's so true. So it's about playing the long game,
Yeah.
focusing on those small but consistent actions that will compound over time.
Right.
And create lasting results. So it's about getting back to some of those, like, old-fashioned values, like hard work, discipline, delayed gratification.
I think it's a really important point. In this world where everything is, I want it now, it's really easy to lose sight of the power of delayed gratification.
Right.
But those who are willing to put in the work, to be patient, to persevere, they are the ones that achieve amazing things.
That's a really good point. It's about understanding that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Exactly.
And, speaking of, like, taking responsibility, the book introduces this really powerful concept called 100% ownership.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
And this is where we step up and we take responsibility for every aspect of our lives.
Yes.
Regardless of what's happening around us.
Regardless of those external circumstances, it's about shifting from, like, this victim mentality to a creator mentality.
Okay.
Because we always have a choice.
Right.
We always have a choice in how we respond to situations.
Yeah.
And even when things are really tough, we can choose our attitude. We can choose our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, we choose our destiny.
The book shares an anecdote about when the author went through a business partnership that just went south, and it ended up costing him a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of just like dwelling on that loss, he decided to just learn from it.
Right.
He took responsibility for his part in it.
Right.
And he used those lessons to make better decisions going forward.
And that's the key. He didn't just acknowledge the mistake. He used it as a learning opportunity. So taking ownership isn't about beating yourself up over things. It's about empowering yourself to make better choices going forward.
Yeah, it's like that saying about, failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone.
That's a great way to look at it.
To success.
Yeah. And, the book delves into this idea of luck and how it might not be as random as we think.
Okay.
It's often the choices that we've made and the actions that we take that put us in a position for these opportunities.
Right. The author actually interviews Richard Branson, from Virgin.
Yeah, Virgin Group.
And he says that, luck is all around us. We just need to be open to recognizing it.
I love that. It really highlights the importance of having a positive attitude and just being open to possibility.
Right.
If we're always focused on what's going wrong or what we don't have, we're going to miss all of those serendipitous moments that lead to great things.
Yeah. So it's about cultivating gratitude and being open to, recognizing those lucky breaks when they come our way.
It is, yeah. And the book suggests a really simple but effective method to help us take control of our choices.
Okay, what is it?
It's called the scoreboard.
Okay, so we talked about this before.
It's a tracking method. It's
Yeah.
about bringing awareness to our actions by keeping a record of them.
Right.
The author shares this story about how he used it to get control of his finances. He tracked every penny he spent for a month. And by doing that, he became really mindful of his spending habits. And he was able to start making better financial decisions.
That's pretty incredible how such a simple thing can have such a big impact.
I know, right? It really is. It's all about shining a light on those unconscious patterns.
Yeah.
And then you can start making deliberate changes.
And the book says that this scoreboard method is not just for your finances. It can be used for, just about anything.
Yeah, like if you want to lose weight, you can track your calories.
Oh, okay.
If you want to monitor your progress toward a specific goal, you can use a scoreboard for that too.
So it's like becoming like the scientist
Yes.
of your own life.
Yes, the scientist of your own life.
Yeah.
And the great thing is, it not only helps you become more aware of your choices, but it also serves as a really powerful motivator.
Oh,
Because it gives you a visual representation of your progress, which can be really encouraging, especially when you get those bumps in the road and you feel like giving up.
Yeah, so it's like having this accountability partner, like right there with you. Yeah, cheering you on. Now let's talk about motivation. The book uses a really compelling analogy to show just how important it is to have a strong why.
Yeah, are you talking about the plank walk?
Yes. So first, imagine you are strolling across a plank. It's just lying flat on the ground.
Okay, no big deal.
No big deal, right? Super easy. But now, picture that same plank is suspended high above the ground between two skyscrapers.
Gulp.
Right.
Yeah, suddenly it's a whole different ball game.
Totally different.
The action hasn't changed. You're still walking across a plank.
Right.
But now it all comes down to your motivation. Are you willing to take the risk?
Right. If your why is strong enough, you can overcome incredible challenges.
You really can. But that why, it needs to be more than just, oh, I kind of want this.
Right.
It has to be deeply rooted in your core values.
Yeah.
Those guiding principles
Okay.
that shape who you are.
Yeah, so it's not just about wanting to achieve something. It's about aligning your goals with what truly matters to you. And I love how the book gives us those questions again to help us figure out those core values.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about asking yourself, what do I stand for? What legacy do I want to leave behind?
Yeah.
What brings me joy and fulfillment? Once you answer those questions, you start to uncover your core values, and they will fuel your actions and guide you.
Yeah, and when our goals are connected to our values, we tap into this inexhaustible well of motivation
Maybe.
that can help us push through those challenges and setbacks.
And that passion, it becomes contagious.
Mm.
When you are really inspired by what you're doing, it shows up everywhere.
Hmm.
It's your work, your relationships, your well-being. It's amazing.
Okay, so we've got our values figured out, our motivation's fired up. We're
Yes.
ready to set some clear, specific goals, but it's not just wishful thinking, right?
No.
What's the key to setting goals that we will actually stick with and achieve?
Well, like we talked about before, there's a connection to the law of attraction.
Mm.
By clearly defining what you want, you prime your mind to notice opportunities that you might not have seen otherwise.
Right, so it's like programming that internal GPS.
It is, exactly.
Mm.
And the book emphasizes that, before we even think about how we're going to achieve these goals,
Mm.
we need to ask ourselves an important question. Who do I need to become to achieve this goal?
Okay, so we talked about that earlier. It's about identifying the qualities, the skills, the habits.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
For example, if your goal is to write a book, you might need to become more disciplined, more organized, more resilient, so you can handle rejections and setbacks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's not just about the external actions, it's about cultivating those internal qualities.
It is. And it's important to remember that the compound effect, it works both ways.
Okay.
Just as positive habits and choices can lead to growth, negative patterns can also compound over time and lead to a downward spiral.
That's a great point. So that's where that awareness comes in.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
We need to pay attention to the choices we're making every day and make sure they are moving us in the direction we want to go.
You got it.
So, the book talks a lot about finding our motivation, like what drives us forward. But it also acknowledges that sometimes our motivation comes from what we don't want.
That's interesting.
So it's not always about, striving for something positive. It's sometimes about avoiding something negative.
Yeah, think about it. Some of the most powerful movements, social movements, and even personal transformations have been fueled by people's desire to escape from, injustice, inequality, oppression.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So it's not about judging the source of our motivation. It's about harnessing that power
Yes.
to create positive change.
Hmm.
Whether it's driven by love, fear, or even anger, the key is to channel that energy into constructive action.
Exactly. The book shares this really inspiring story about Anthony Hopkins,
Oh, yeah.
the actor.
Yeah?
He actually overcame a lot of early challenges in his life, and he used his anger as fuel, to achieve incredible things.
It's a powerful reminder that even those difficult experiences can be used as like catalysts,
Yeah.
for growth and transformation if we learn from them.
Yeah.
And use them to move us forward.
Absolutely. And as we keep going on our journey, it's really important to remind ourselves of those core values and use them as guiding principles for our choices and our actions.
Right. It's about creating a life that feels authentic
Yes.
and fulfilling, a life that aligns with what truly matters.
It is. And when you're living in alignment with your true self, that authenticity, it really shines through. It attracts opportunities and inspires people.
It's like you become this magnet for the things that you want when you're living in alignment with your values. But
Yeah.
hold on, we still have so much more to cover.
I know.
We have to dive into those actual steps.
Yes.
And be specific about how our listeners can really use this compound effect. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more insights from the book and some practical tips to help you transform your life one small step at a time. Okay, so we are back and ready to dive into some more insights from our deep dive into the compound effect. One thing that stuck with me is this idea that success is not really a destination.
Right.
It's more of a journey.
It is, yeah. It's about embracing that process of growth and always trying to improve, even just a little bit each day.
And the book actually highlights this really simple yet powerful concept to kind of, illustrate this point.
Okay.
It's called the 11,000th of 1% rule. So it's this idea that if we commit to improving by just this tiny little fraction every day.
Those tiny improvements just compound over time.
Yeah.
And they can lead to like a 1,000% improvement over 10 years.
Wow. That is a pretty impressive return on investment.
It is. It really is.
For what seems like, very small efforts.
It highlights the power of consistency. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
This really resonates with me because it takes the pressure off of having to make these massive changes overnight.
It does. And it makes the whole process feel more manageable.
Yeah.
Instead of getting overwhelmed by these huge leaps and bounds, you can just focus on those little steps.
Yeah.
And over time, they create a huge transformation.
Yeah. The book actually shares the story about a saleswoman named Beverly. And she decided to train for a half marathon
Oh, yeah.
with some encouragement from the author. And what's so interesting is it's not just about the running. It's about this ripple effect that happened because she committed to this goal.
Yeah, I love that story. It's amazing.
Yeah, like she lost weight, her energy levels, went through the roof.
Yeah.
Her relationships improved, even her work performance got better.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of how positive habits and choices can really impact every area of our lives.
And it all started with one small decision.
Right.
Just to walk around the block.
That's all it takes. One small step can be the beginning of a huge transformation.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the compound effect, what is the biggest takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that success is not about these grand gestures, these overnight miracles, these quick fixes. It's about consistently taking small actions, day after day, week after week, year after year.
Yeah, and it's about recognizing the power in the choices that we make every single day.
Every decision we make, no matter how small, it creates this ripple effect that impacts our future. And the book really emphasizes that it's never too late to start using this to your advantage. It doesn't matter what you want to improve, whether it's your health, your finances, your relationships, any area of your life. The key is to
start today. Choose one small action, make it a habit, and just watch what happens.
And before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question that the book asks. If you could go back in time and change one small habit or one small choice, what would you change and how do you think it would impact your life today?
Oh, that's a good one. Something to definitely think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the compound effect. We hope you leave feeling inspired to make those small changes that can lead to really big results in your life.
Absolutely. Remember, the power to create the life you want is within you. It's in those small, everyday choices. Embrace the compound effect and watch as your dreams become a reality.